Hello, my name is Anna Ukrainiana, and today I have a very special guest. It's Maria. She's a Ukrainian girl, a Ukrainian activist, just a citizen of Mariupol. She agreed to having an interview with us. Thank you very much for agreeing. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm better than a few months ago, but still not good because in Ukraine is war. Russian Nazism came to our land and killed our people.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are from, what you are interested in, what do you do?
I'm Maria from Mariupol. I'm 30 years old and I'm studying in journalism. Last few years, I'm working like a social media manager and PR manager. I work in startup center, which helps local IT teams provide their products, finding clients. And also I'm working in a center of contemporary art, Hotel Continental. It was culture institution where some talented young people from Mariupol doing like performances, dancing, singing, painting, etc. Also, I was like a hobby actress of not professional theater mania. So I very enjoyed my life in Mariupol. But some bad guys from Russia decided that they should save me from my good life, and they killed thousands of people in Mariupol. So like few months, and my beautiful, amazing life was destroyed, like lives of a lot of Ukrainians.
It's horrible what is happening right now in Ukraine. What do you remember about the year 2014? What was happening in Mariupol then?
So I want to explain something from Mariupol and Donetsk region. All history of Ukraine and Russian relationships was bad because Russians, they want us, they want our land, they canceled our culture, canceled our languages, they kill our good people from Ukraine. Hundreds years Russians want kill us, want to destroy us, and for Ukrainians it's like another war with Russia. Donetsk region historically was a lot of Russians living there, and a lot of Ukrainians was Russification. But all my family, all my friends, a lot of people in Mariupol, they was like, we're Ukrainian people, we're not Russian. Thanks God that we are in independent Ukraine. We don't want to live in Russian Federation. 8 years ago, Russia started war. Their soldiers wearing like clothes of like normal people, not in uniform. They came to Ukrainian cities. They occupied our municipality, administration buildings, police office, and the center of the cities. And in Mariupol was the same way. It was a lot of people with guns. On that time, study in university, and I'm and my students friends, we don't go to the city center because we understand that it's dangerous. A lot of people with guns, they steal some things from the shops, drinking vodka. It was insane. It was 3 months in the middle of April 2014. Those people, they come to the Ukrainian forces center and said to our Ukrainian soldiers, like, give us your weapon. And it was fight, and few people was dying on this situation. Another situation was May 9 2014. It's like a victory day, and on this like celebration, those people from Russia and those crazy people, it's not a lot of such people who really want to be part of the Russia, they come into the Mariupol police center, police office. They also said to our policemen, like, give us your weapon. And it was like fight, shooting, and few policemen died, few people from Russia died. And another story, they doing fire in our city government. Nobody died on this fire, but they destroying a very big building in a city center. The end of the story was good because on June 13, Azov save us. They arrested a lot of those people. It was fighting. A lot of this bad Russian guy running away from the city. Every year on this date, June 13, we celebrate very memorable day that we were saved from the Russia occupation. And a lot of people in Mariupol started to talking on Ukrainian. It's been more Ukrainian symbolics in the city. I understand that in my city really was, and now living crazy people who was like Russia, 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 but it was like a few percent really like the biggest massive of people of Mariupol was like, we are Ukrainians, we don't want them with Russia. Russians, they occupied part of the Ukrainian territory, part of the Donetsk region and Lugansk region, and the border was 10 kilometers near the Mariupol. So it was like a front line. A lot of people from the occupied territories, refugees, they come into Mariupol. And after this, Russia attacked to Mariupol in January 2015. They bombing Bartol of Mariupol. More than 30 people died. They just, from the artillery, they like blocks buildings with people. And it was a big tragedy of Mariupol. All these 8 years, we was a front line. It's been a lot of fighting between Russians and Ukrainian army near the Mariupol. So we hear the bombing, we hear the attacks. You live in really near the war.
How did it start for you in 2022?
It's been a lot of conversation about Russians' armies near the border. It was very, depressing situation. A few days before, Russians started attack with artillery some Ukrainian army positions near the Mariupol. So we hearing like 24 February, it was also attacked. My glass in window was shaken. I wake up and I said stop panic. It's a work day, Tuesday, you should sleep. A few hours later, I wake up and I see that on my telephone, it's a lot of, missing calls, a lot of messages. And I was like, why people call on me in the 5 o'clock in the morning, they're craziness. And then I read the news and I understand in the first day, Russians attacked a lot of cities of Ukraine. And that day we was like, it's no safety place in Ukraine. We don't understand what to do. And when we was like, maybe we should go, Russians, they occupied territory near the Mariupol, and Mariupol was like in a circle. It's my cat from Mariupol, Mishka.
Mishka.
Yes.
You took it from Mariupol when you evacuated.
Yes, in my arms. So on our first few days, been a lot of panic in the city, a lot of people in the shops, a lot of people on a gas station. Then Russians started very massive bombing in Mariupol.
Were they bombing the houses of civilians?
They bombing everywhere. Kindergartens, schools, shop centers, the buildings where people live. Everywhere. Near my house didn't was any Ukrainian army position, nothing. But they bombing my house, bombing all the quarter, and it was scariest. They destroyed every communication in Mariupol, so we didn't have electricity, we didn't have water, mobile connection, gas, anything. So it was very cold March. Unusual from Mariupol, but it was very cold. Like a few centuries ago, we doing a fire in the yards and preparing the food. It was insane, but after March 10, in my area of the city, it was like street fighting between Ukrainian army and Russians. So Russian tanks came to this district. So it was really my yard is the front line where the Ukrainian soldiers started to stop Russians. From that day, Russians bombing my house, a few my neighbors dying. And it was very scary because, bombs destroying buildings, people have problems, but you didn't have mobile connection. You couldn't call hello, doctor, help me, I need your help. We're trying to help our neighbors, but they dying because they lost a lot of blood. And they, lying on my corridor in my apartment, dead bodies. My grandmother was living in Mariupol when Mariupol was occupied by Nazi, and she told me those crazy stories. And 70 years later, I see it on my own eyes. Bomb destroyed my apartment. All windows was gone. All doors between rooms, central door was destroyed. Furniture was destroyed. So it was everything was like this. I really don't understand how we survived because we was in apartment, but we have a mattress from the beds. We put it on the floor and we lie on the floor, and this furniture we're doing a protect circle and we line on this circle. It really helps us because when everything was destroyed, we have just few brushes. Our another neighbors, their apartment was okay, and they said come to us, and we came to the corridor. It was like 6 meters and 2 meters. Why in corridor? Because if bomb come into apartment, you need few walls between you and bomb. 6 days, 6 people live in a corridor. We didn't can line normal. We was like, we have no food, we have not so a lot of water. It was very cold and it was like water with ice. After the bomb attacked, Ukrainian soldiers, they come into our yard and ask, do we need help? And my mom said like, we have no food, and they give us cookies. And so we eating these cookies, like 6 cookies per person for all day, and cold water. And we're doing like a week, and we not preparing anything in yard on fire because every hour was bombing by artillery and every few hours was bombing by plane. So we sitting in the corridor praying, and we understand that we have no food, we have no water, and the bombing not stopped. So we decided that we should go away from our district. We decided to go to the Drama Theatre. When the war started, all cultural buildings, they was like our shelter. It's opened, you could come. Drama Theatre was the biggest shelter. We know that people living in Sitra, and also we know is that Ukraine sent to Mariupol evacuation buses, and people could go to the more safe place, go from the Mariupol. And in the morning, March 16, we started to run in the street. We was shocked because when we see the street, we not recognize it because every building was destroyed, trees was broken cars, dead bodies on the street. Everything was like this, like really apocalypse. Few blocks near our house, we saw Russian tanks with that. It was very scary. We starting to run, and those tanks, they started to shoot to us. We are 6 people, we're not army guys, we're looking like citizens, like a woman, you know. Why is they shooting at us? And so we're running, and then we came to the theatre. It was a lot of people there. If you want to stay, find an empty place like on a floor and stay there. All the corridors, offices, all the rooms was full of people. No electricity in the building, it's very dark. So we find empty place on a 3rd floor in hall. They have a food and they give us warm tea, and we was very happy, like because we was like weak. My uncle, he's 71 years old. He lives near the theatre and we have no connection with him. So I decided to go to his house, and I come to my uncle. On that period he was fine. His house was okay. I told him, now we are in theatre. If evacuation buses come, I run into you and we go to these buses. When I go back to the theatre, I was on a next street and I hear the plane that have like bombs. He have a special sound. They have very big bombs and it's very dangerous. And I'm on the street, and I was very scary. And I hearing that he's somewhere like near me, and he bombed something near me. And I was very happy because I was like, whew, I'm lucky, everything fine. But then when I'm come to the theatre, I understand that this plane destroyed a theatre. My mind didn't understand it for like few seconds, because you know, I'm coming to the theatre and I see that the red roof of the building lying on a street, and my mind was like, what theatre roof doing on the street? And I really realize what's happening with the building when I hear the noises, screaming, hundreds of people screaming, and some of them just screaming, and some of them they screaming like the names, like mom, dad, Sasha, Dasha. And when I realized this noise, I was just on this way. I was like, they destroying the theatre. When we come to this building, it looks like nothing in this world could destroy such a big building, you're really thinking that this is a safety place. You know, people, they call it like mom, dad, and I was like, my mom there, my sister there, my neighbors there. I didn't know what to do. I was so shocked. I see bodies lying on the street. Russians, they really planned this attack. Why I think so? Because if they doing this on the night, there was just the people who lives in the theater, you know. But it was almost 10 o'clock of the morning. On this time, a lot of people was in the theater and near the theater. Near the theater come the machine with water. So it was a lot of people who is waiting this machine. And these machines coming in the morning. People from the buildings near the theater, they come into the theater square to preparing the food on a big like fires in the morning. Also, a lot of people waiting the evacuation buses, and the evacuation buses should be 9 till 11 o'clock. So I understand they were like, we need to kill more people. What perfect time? 10 o'clock, perfect. It was not, you know, like mistake. They want to kill us. And everyone knows that in the theater is people. I didn't see in the theater any army guy, any guns, any weapons. I didn't see army technique. It was women, children, old men, people who trying to find a safety place. So I'm running to the central enter. I'm running to the hall, and it was a lot of people. Like everything's destroyed, and I'm running to the third floor. I see the blood on the floor. I see some people who was lying on the floor, but I didn't see my family. I'm running to the street, and I started screaming their names. I see them. I was shocked, but then everyone started screaming that everyone from the shelter, everyone from the another floors should go away from the building because it's fire. We go to the square and we are standing like shocked what we're gonna do. And then Russians started to bombing the area of the theater from the artillery. Very idiot situation, because you should go to the shelter because artillery. But we couldn't go to the shelter because building on fire. And people started to run like in hysterica in different ways. And we also ran into the Philharmonic, and in Philharmonic was like few hundreds people living on that time. We stayed on a Philharmonic, and Russians started bombed this building also. And I remember I'm lying on the floor, on the first floor in the hall of Philharmonic, and I hearing, you know, like the bombs destroying the windows of the Philharmonic. And I heard this noise where the glass is broken. And I ran, and I was like, so in the morning I was in a theater. Now I'm sitting in a Philharmonic, and I was like, what extreme cultural program I had this day. Before we think where a lot of people, it's a safety place. But then we understand that where is a lot of people, it's a good plan to Russians to kill these people, because it's a lot of people. And we was like, we should go away. The next day we go away by walk from the Mariupol to the village near the Mariupol. It's called Milekina. It's 15 kilometers. And I remember we was on a Ukrainian block post, and Ukrainian soldiers, they said all the territory near the Mariupol is occupied. It's Russian soldiers. Not talk with them, not talk in Ukrainian, deleted from the telephone everything that you have in Ukrainian, like, I don't know, some flags, some symbolics, destroyed. If Russian soldiers starting to ask you your position, said that you are with Russia. Also Ukrainian soldiers, they said, "Chassé to this village is with mines."
Mines.
Be very careful and watch where you standing, because it's dangerous. And we really see these mines on a trassa, and we was like scary, very scary. And we go to this village. They also didn't have a food, water, like connection. We understand that we need to go to Zaporizhzhia, the biggest Ukrainian city near the Mariupol that didn't was occupied. My friend has a friend who have a house in Milekina, and they said like you could stay. We stayed in Milekina 4 days. In this village was a lot of Russian soldiers. They was drunk. They shot into the sky. I don't know, like. So we understand that we are in very dangerous situation. And a few days later, we find men who put us to Berdansk. It's another city. It's also occupied by Russians. Between Mariupol and Zaporizhia, Ukrainians really sent evacuation buses to Berdyansk, but it was like 20,000 Ukrainians who weren't evacuated from the Berdyansk. But Russians let go to the city just few buses. We sit on the buses after 4 days for waiting. But it was very bad trip because, Berdyansk to Zaporizhia, it's 100 kilometers. In normal situation, it's 3 hours. But we was 36 hours because Russians have block posts. A lot of every blog post we are stopping, they checking our telephones, our passports, our clothing. Then they said stay at night in the field. It's end of the March, it's very cold weather, we have no food, no water, it's very scary. But then we came to the Ukrainian territory, and when we saw first Ukrainian blog post with our flag, all the bus was crying. I swear to you, we thinking that now Ukrainians start to check us, but Ukraine bus is not stopping. The soldiers was like, just good luck, you're in Ukraine. People from another countries, they said, Ukrainians demonize Russians. But I swear to you, I see it like a different reality. I see Russian soldiers in Russian block post, and they looking like a serial killers. How he looks on you, how he talking with you. And few people, they didn't have one eye, they have like a glass eye, like people from the prison. And they was very like really crazy, dangerous people. I was shaken. But I saw Ukrainian soldiers like a normal guys who was like, hello, good luck. Normal people who trying to protect their country, their home, their families. Then we come to Zaporizhia, and from Zaporizhia we come into Lviv. We stay in Ukraine 2 weeks. All the territory of Ukraine is bombing, so we decided to go to the Europe, and now we are almost 4 months in Lithuania, in Vilnius.
That's, gosh, I don't even know what to say. It's a very, very difficult story. What changed in you?
First of all, I'm really understand that every day could be your last day. You should be happy for every moment, and if you want to talk with some people or doing something that you want, you should do it. I understand that a lot of Ukrainians, they really hate Russians. I didn't hate them, really. I understand that they're really, they sick because their propaganda is dangerous. I don't know how we should find a way to save these people from themselves. I want that every Russian soldier, every Russians who hate Ukraine, stay in Russia, but not go to Ukraine. Everything that I want, that they should leave Ukraine. Russia really now building USSR number 2. And it's dangerous. Now they fighting with us. They fighting with Georgia. They fighting with Moldova, in Syria, in Afghanistan, and they fighting in other countries. If we not win, they come into Europe. How Russians destroyed buildings in Mariupol. It was crazy people in Mariupol who gives Russians the coordinate. It was a marks. I find mark on my building. Some piece of shit marked my building for Russian plane, and this plane bombed my house. And those people who likes Russia and live in Europe, they could do it for Russians too. You need just few people in the city for doing these marks for artillery, for aviation. I really trying, to understand enemy, what they want. But all that I heard from them, that Ukrainian language, Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian nationality doesn't exist. It's all Russians. So they told me, Masha, you thinking that you're Ukrainian? It's not true, you're Russian. They're really craziness. They're really Nazi, and they dangerous for all world.
Yes, right now they showed their true face when they attacked Ukraine. Right now Russia is showing propagandistic videos where Mariupol is saved. It's so happy, people are happy. What do you feel when you see it?
In Mariupol before war lives 500,000 people. Now it's less than 100,000 people. Just 10% of the building have electricity. They still have no water. They still have no medicine. They really have some food, but it's very expensive. They have just few work, cleaning streets, buildings, bodies, because in Mariupol died more than 20,000 people. I know people who died from the hunger. I know a lot of people who die without medicine. In Mariupol, it's not a good way to live in. A lot of people staying in Mariupol for a few reasons. First of all, they afraid to go everywhere because it's a lot of Russian propaganda. People was in information vacuum. They didn't has like a mobile connection, internet, anything. They hearing just Russian radio or Russian propagandistic journals and newspapers. So people really don't understand what happened. 95% of the building is destroyed. Russia propaganda could say everything, but Mariupol is destroyed and it's not good city to live and people go away.
Basically what you were saying is that they're lying. People are not happy there. There's nothing. How can they live happily if there's no water, no gas, no electricity, no connection, no buildings, no jobs, no nothing? What would you say to people who believe what Russia is showing?
When you live like thousands of kilometers near the Ukraine, how you could know the truth, what's really happened there? Second, read the history of Russian-Ukrainian relationship. 100 years, they won't focus. Third, if you want to understand really what's happened, trying to read few sources, yes, like read Russian, read Ukrainian, and read some European. And you understand that Russian is like a
parallel reality.
If some sources saying something similar, maybe it's true, but no one saying something similar for Russia. Just, Russian bloggers, Russian sources, and pro-Russian politics. You should understand that Russia buying your politics, and they pay media, politics for talking this Russian bullshit. They have a lot of money, so because of that, you should stop buying their gas, oil, and another. They shouldn't have money for war.
I totally agree with you. Thank you very much for this interview. It was a very strong story. It's horrible, but I think it's very important that people know it.
Thank you for inviting me.
See you around. Bye.
Yeah, bye.